In this section, we're going to be dealing with functions, and in this particular video, we're going to be defining what it is to define your own user functions. This is the user functions PHP script, and we're also going to be talking about other types of functions and how we can put our functions into other files so we can reuse them with ease, not just in one page, but throughout our websites. Now, function is the keyword. And this is just somewhere down from the top of the page. We're going to define a function, and we define a function by giving it a name, and we have to use names just as if we're using the regular variable names. We want to make sure we obey the case sensitivity of things, which is standard in PHP. In this example, we're just going to pass in two variables. Now, we've already worked with functions that are part of the language in PHP itself. Here we're defining our own functions. So you have to be very, very aware of the fact that you're actually going to be coding the behind the scenes of what's going to process the variables that you pass to it. So what we're doing now is defining a function definition. That's what we're doing. And just keep in mind that the actual functions themselves should be formatted correctly, meaning that this particular function has values in there, but they're not really formatted with the tabs. You should do that. Makes things look a lot better. Even give an extra line here, as you see here, just to make things better. Well, functions, they take parameters and they return values sometimes. They don't have to, but they can. And we've seen the built-in functions for PHP that actually return true or false, or they return an array, for example, and we're going to be doing similar things. The first thing, we're just going to add two numbers, as you can see. So two parameters are passed in. These are the names, and this is the function definition. So we're defining it. And then we just return $1 plus $2, semicolon. This is going to return the value there. It's going to do the math and return something. So later on, we can actually use the function, like you see down here. So also note that the curly braces are going to define this block of code, and the variables themselves, for the most part, are going to be local there within that function. We'll talk about variable scope as well. So $sum is a variable, and it's going to receive what is returned, which is the addition of 1,000 plus 2,000, and that's just passed into that variable. You want to make sure that you have a variable return type when you're working with your functions, as we'll talk about. The second function here, add again, this is doing it a different way. Here we're going to process that variable on a separate line. We're not going to do it on a return statement. We're just going to do it separately. This is the optimized way of doing it. Very easy, but you can break it out to as many lines as you want to. And you can see $sum is equal to $number plus number 2, number 1 and number 2, and then just returning the sum. Same thing. Two parameters are passed. No big deal. If you just want to list out the parameters, you can do that. You can just echo it. That's what we do here. Also notice that we don't return anything. So that's not a big deal. We can use this in different ways. But when we don't return something, we're actually going to echo this out ourselves. We're not going to rely on the program itself, the rest of the code and the rest of the body, to use this function. We're not going to rely on that. We're going to echo in the function, and you can do either or, return or echo here, echo out the information, or you can do both. It really is up to you what you need the function to do. Functions can be written for just about everything. Notice how we use these functions down here. You can pass them like you would any variable onto the echo. Use them in strings, what have you. Notice we have different values that are going to come out. This is going to return something. So when it returns something, then you can put that to be combined with output because it has a value. Without returning anything, you won't be returning a value. So it's not going to be used in this way. That's not something you would do. But you can see that the list parameters down here, this is going to list the parameters that you have there, and it's going to echo this, but it's also going to echo out whatever those parameters are. And we'll take a peek at the output for that. And there you see them. They're echoed, and it doesn't really matter. There's no error there, but it's not really the standard way to do that because it's going to echo basically nothing, the empty string, but the list parameters function is going to also echo something, so it's going to be echoed right together. So it's not actually returning it. Just keep that in mind. I wouldn't necessarily do things this way, but you can. Also note that you can pass variables in that have different names than what the function is waiting for. These variable names are setting the stage for the variable names inside the function that you can use. It's really like you can assign them and initialize them to values there. But when you are outside the function, you're dealing with any variable name that you have there, so you can put whatever you want there. Not a problem.